The token on the altar flickered and went out. 0, 0, 0. The 3 digits fell into the silence of the hall like stones into a well. Chen Wuji stood before the stone altar of resonance, staring at the lifeless jade in his hands. 0.00. For the first time in the history of the Chen clan, the token hadn't even sparked. The elders on the platform exchanged glances. Someone snorted. Someone looked away. And then Chen Haoyang rose from the front row. The younger brother, 17 years old. An R7 glowed with a steady green light on his token. Haoyang bowed to his father. He bowed to the elders. He turned to Wuji and spoke the words he had been preparing for half a year. He said he would take his older brother's place. He said he would do it for the clan. His voice was steady and warm, the voice of a man who had rehearsed in front of a mirror. Wuji heard these words through the ringing in his temples. That morning, Haoyang had pushed a bowl of rice porridge toward him, silently, with his usual half-smile. Wuji Z ate every last bit. All his life, he'd taken this as a sign of care. Honglong's tear, an extremely rare magic suppressant. It dissolves without taste or smell. It lasts 6 hours. Haoyang had started preparing it half a year ago, exactly when he found out the date of the exam for the late opening of the vein. Uzi didn't realize this right away. At first, he felt his knees buckling. The residual effects of the poison coursed through his muscles like a hot wave and threw him onto the stone floor. The hall erupted in laughter. 300 people, elders, servants, disciples of the side branches. Everyone was laughing. The eldest of the elders stepped forward and ripped the family's jade buckle from Uzi's belt. The movement was swift. The fabric snapped. The buckle clattered against the stone and rolled to Haoyang's feet. He didn't pick it up. He didn't need it. He already had his own. Uzi knelt, staring at the floor. The marble was cold. In the left corner of the hall, he saw the hem of a scarlet dress. Su Lin, his fiancée. R8, the heiress of the allied house. She wasn't looking at him. Her hand lay in Haoyang's. Their fingers were intertwined, as usual, not for the first time. Wuji realized that this too had been going on for more than a day. He raised his head. Bile rose in his throat. His eyes were dry. He looked up at Haoyang. His brother was smiling. The smile was gentle and slightly guilty, exactly the same as this morning over the bowl of porridge. Wuji spoke a single sentence. Quietly. So quietly that only Haoyang could hear him. He said he would return that bow. With interest. Haoyang blinked. His smile didn't waver, but his pupils dilated for a split second. He had heard it. The guards escorted Wuji out through the back door. Former heir. Former fiancé. Former mage. 3 words prefixed with former in a single morning. It was raining outside. Wuji walked along the road from the clan's estate to the city gates. No one called out to him from behind. The family home stood on a hill, illuminated by warm lanterns. Inside, they were now setting the festive table in honor of the new heir. The rain was cold. Wuji stopped at the bridge over the Jinghe River. His hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from the poison. Honglong's tear was leaving his body slowly and painfully. Every joint was on fire. He sat down on a wet rock and closed his eyes. That was when it happened. It was as if a thin wall had burst inside his skull, as if he had been looking through a cloudy pane of glass his whole life. And suddenly, the glass had cracked. The world had changed. He opened his eyes and saw the rain differently. Every drop carried a wafer-thin thread of magic, the element of water. One wouldn't even have noticed it, but Wuji saw every thread. He saw how they wove into patterns. He saw the knots. He saw cracks in the knots. He turned his head toward the bridge. The bridge's stone was covered with a protective spell against erosion. At least R4, an old spell. Wuji saw all 17 knots of this spell. He saw that the 3rd and 11th were tied crookedly. He saw that if he poked the 3rd knot with his finger, the shield would crumble in a second. The Eye of the 9 Truths. He didn't know that name. Didn't know that it was passed down once every 1,000 years. didn't know that his vein wasn't dead, but a vessel of a different order. He knew only one thing. A minute ago, the world was blind. Now it sees. A piece of paper rustled in his pocket. Wuji pulled out the scroll. It was wet, but the seal of the Council of the Seven Towers shone through the water. Chen Wuji has been admitted to the Bai Yue Academy by Special Decree No. 7. Category: Observational Subject. There was no signature. The Bai Yue Academy, a girls' school on a floating island. No man had set foot there in 1,000 years. They accept only girls with veins above the 6th level of resonance. And they had sent him an admission notice. Him, a 0. It wasn't an act of mercy. He could feel it in his bones. Someone wanted to see what would happen. Someone bearing the council's seal was playing a game and had chosen him as a pawn. Wuji folded the scroll and tucked it away. He stood up. His legs were still trembling, but the poison was receding. He glanced toward the Chen clan. The lanterns on the hill burned brightly. The celebration continued. Hao Yan was now seated at the head of the table. Su Lin was beside him. The elders were raising their cups. Wuji's name had already been struck from the clan registry. He turned and walked toward the eastern gate, toward the flying barge dock, toward the floating island. The token in his pocket still read 0.00. But a new light burned inside his skull. Cold, precise, patient. He would return that bow. Every single one of them. The flying barge rose above the clouds, and Wuji saw Bai Yue for the first time. White stone, white walls, white bridges between the towers. The floating island hung in the sky like a fragment of the moon and glowed with cold silver. 2 people were waiting for him at the pier. A woman in a dark blue robe with a jade hairpin and a young secretary holding a polished wooden tablet. The woman looked him up and down. She introduced herself as Mentor Wen Jun, curator of the admissions committee. R9. Wuji saw it instantly. His eye revealed the structure of her vein. Ice element. Efficiency, 47%. High for a master, but far from the limit. Wen Jun said he had been enrolled by special decree and would be placed in Class Y, the lowest class. 12 female students, average level P3.2. She said this with an expression as if she were delivering a diagnosis. Wuji nodded. The secretary took note. Wen Jun added that, as the only man on the premises, he was prohibited from entering the residential buildings from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Contact with female students without the presence of a supervisor. Carrying any weapon is prohibited. Violation of any of these 3 points will result in immediate expulsion and referral to Master Helian Shu's office for further determination. Wuji noted the last name. Helian Shu, Dean of the Faculty of Blood, R10. She pronounced that name a little more quietly than the rest, as one might pronounce the name of a disease. They led him to a room on the 1st floor of the farthest tower. Stone walls, a narrow bed, a table. The window looked out onto the inner courtyard. In the center of the courtyard stood a wall of black stone. The main register. 300 names engraved in gold, from top to bottom. The first name at the top shone brightest of all. Bai Zhi, R8, Class Jia. Wuji walked over to the window and looked down. A group of girls in crimson dresses stood by the register. Class Jia, the top 12. Their names occupied the top lines. Bai Jiao Yue stood in the center. Tall, back straight. Her hair was pulled back into an elaborate style with silver chains. She was saying something to her friends, and they were laughing. Wuji's eyes reacted automatically. He saw Bai Jiao Yue's element. Fire, R8. Efficiency, 38%. He blinked. 38%. For an R8, that meant more than half her potential was being wasted. Poor breathing technique. Her grip was too wide when forming the knots. If those 2 parameters were corrected, she'd be an R9 in just a month. But no one was correcting her. She was the best, and that was enough. Wuji turned away from the window. He sat down at the table. He took out a token. 0.00. The numbers flickered lifelessly in green. He placed the token on the table and closed his eyes. The eye of the Nine Truths opened wider. He could see streams of magic flowing across the entire island. Hundreds of veins, hundreds of structures, hundreds of cracks. And amid this flow, he saw 12 dim lights in the far wing. Class Y. His class. The next morning, he entered the Class Y lecture hall for the first time. 12 girls. 12 pairs of eyes. Not a single smile. Instructor Wen Jun introduced him as an observer under Decree Number 7. One of the girls snorted. Another stared at his black uniform amid the crimson and azure. A third simply turned away. Wuji silently took a seat on the back bench. His eyes were working. He saw each of the 12. Lin Xiaowan, R3, element of light. Efficiency, 22%. She came from a family of healers, the daughter of an impoverished family. She sat by the window and looked at the register in the courtyard. Her name was third from the bottom. Gu Yanhua, R4, element of thunder. Efficiency, 29%. Abrupt movements, vicious eyes. She looked at Wuji not with contempt, but with defiance, like a beast accustomed to striking first. Mu Qiao, R3, earth element. Efficiency, 31%. Quiet, motionless. She sat in the corner writing something in a notebook. Her eyes were attentive. Wuji made a separate note of her. The remaining 9, R2 through R4. Efficiency ranging from 18 to 33%, all below the bottom third of the registry. Everyone knew that in 6 months, half of them would be expelled for failing to meet academic standards. Class U was a dumping ground, a place where they dumped those no one cared about. Wuji knew that feeling. The instructor announced the schedule. In 2 days, the mandatory first-year freshmen. Class U versus Class Jia. 12 matches. Tradition. The same instructor uttered that word with a barely perceptible smirk. Tradition meant a public beating. Every year, Class U lost all 12 matches.
The average fight lasted between 8 and 20 seconds.
The time limit was 6. Last year, Bai Zhao Yue finished her match in 6 seconds, and the audience applauded. After the announcement, the auditorium fell silent. Yanhua clenched her fists. Xiaowan lowered her eyes. Mu Qiao continued writing, her expression unchanged. Wuji looked at them and did the math. 12 students, an average efficiency of 26%. If each one's efficiency could be raised by at least 10% in 2 days, then R would increase by an average of 0.5 on average. That's not enough to defeat Jia, but it's enough to surprise them. And surprise is a crack. You can drive a wedge into a crack. That evening, he went out into the courtyard. The moon hung over the white rooftops. No one was at the registry. Wuji walked over and ran his finger along the black stone. 300 names. At the bottom, 12 names from Class U. At the top, 12 names from Class Jia. Between them, a chasm of 300 lines. He withdrew his hand. He turned toward the tower. A light was on in the third-floor window. He Lian Shu's office. Through the eye, Uzi saw a strange structure inside the office. Not a spell.
Not a shield.
Something alive. Something like a pulse. He memorized it and left. 2 days. 12 girls. 12 duels. And a token that read 0.00. Wuji lay down on the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. The eye could see cracks even in stone. Every stone on this island had cracks. One just had to know where to press. He closed his eyes. In the darkness behind his eyelids stood Hao Yan's face. A soft smile. Warm porridge. Cold poison. Wuji spoke a single word into the darkness. Percentage. Then he fell asleep. Wuji arrived at the Bai Yue Academy. She was assigned to Class U, consisting of the 12 weakest female students. In 2 days, there would be a mandatory tournament against Class Jia. A scan revealed that the efficiency of all the students was extremely low. Wuji noticed a strange living structure in He Lian Shu's office. Half an hour before the tournament, Wuji found Lin Xiaowan on the training grounds. She was standing in front of a wooden dummy, trying to cast the light shield spell. Her hands were shaking. The shield flickered and crumbled. R3 on the verge of R2. Wuji stopped 3 steps away and said one sentence. He told her to move her left foot back half a step.
Xiaowan turned around. She looked at him as if he were crazy. Black uniform. Token 0.00. Zero was teaching a mage. She wanted to snap back at him, but Uzi was already walking away. He was heading toward the next one. Gu Yanhua was sitting on a stone bench, clenching and unclenching her fists. White sparks crackled between her fingers. Thunder. Uzi could see through the eye how her meridian was functioning. Efficiency, 29%. The reason was simple. Yanhua was holding her breath at the moment of release. All the thunder passed through her strained throat and lost a third of its power due to a spasm of the diaphragm. He told her to exhale before the second character. Yanhua raised her head. Her eyes were angry. She asked who he thought he was to give orders. Uzi didn't answer. He was already walking toward Mu Qiao. She was standing by the wall, reading a scroll describing the Jia class combat forms. She was preparing. It was useless. She was Earth R3 against Fire R6. No knowledge of forms could bridge the 3-level gap. But Wuji saw something else. Her shield. The Earth shield was not offensive but dense. Efficiency, 31%. If she raised it to 40, she'd hold out not for 1 second, but for 12. And in 12 seconds, her R6 opponent would have time to make a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes when they expect to win in a second, but encounter resistance. He told Mu Qiao to strike at the 3rd node of her opponent's shield, not the center. Mu Qiao looked up from the scroll. She looked at him with a long, quiet gaze. She asked nothing. She nodded. Wuji went around to all 12 of them in 20 minutes. 1 phrase for each. No explanation. No strategy. 1 point, 1 correction. A finger on the right node. 9 out of 12 looked at him with skepticism. 2 brushed him off. 1 listened in silence. The Bai Yue arena was semicircular and open. The white stone of the stands rose in steps toward the instructor's gallery. The masters and magisters sat above. Uzi spotted mentor Wen Jun. Seated next to her was a woman in black whom he had never seen before. His eye displayed R10, Rector Yun Qinghe, a saint candidate. She sat motionless, gazing expressionlessly at the arena. In the center, Class Jia lined up in a row. Scarlet dresses, straight backs. Each wore a badge ranging from R5.5 to R8. Bai Zhao Yue stood at the front.
She looked at Class U and smiled. The smile wasn't malicious. Worse, it was bored. For her, this wasn't a battle. It was entertainment before lunch. Class U entered the arena. 12 girls in azure dresses with dull badges. Lin Xiaowan led the way. Her hands didn't tremble. She stood before her opponent from Class Jia. Zhu Mei Li, R6, Fire Element. The gong sounded. Zhu Mei Li raised her hand to form the classic fire whip. 6 knots. 3 seconds to form. Xiaowan shifted her left foot back half a step. Her body straightened. Her center of gravity dropped lower. A light shield flared up before her. Before, it would shatter in half a second. Now it held for 4. The fire whip struck the shield and splattered. It didn't break through. The spectators in the lower stands fell silent. Xiaowan didn't attack. She just stood there. But she stood her ground. Zhu Mei Li frowned. She unleashed a second whip. A third. A fourth. The shield creaked. Xiaowan retreated. On the 5th strike, the shield burst, and Xiaowan fell. Defeat. But the arena was silent. The fight had lasted 31 seconds. Usually, Class U finished in 6.
31 seconds for a R3 versus R6 match.
In the teacher's gallery, Wen Jun leaned forward. The second match. Mu Qiao versus Li Zhujia. R6.5 fire. Gong. Li Zhujia struck at the center. Mu Qiao raised her earth shield. Solid. Heavy. Li Zhujia threw a second strike. A third. The shield held. Mu Qiao counted. On the 3rd strike, she saw the 3rd node in her opponent's shield. It was flickering. Exactly where 0 had said it would be. Mu Qiao didn't hesitate. She struck with her earth fist right at that spot. Li Zhujia's shield cracked and crumbled like glass. Li Zhujia stood there with her mouth agape, without a shield, exposed. Mu Qiao poured everything she had left into a single strike. The earth fist struck the chest plate of her armor. Li Zhujia was sent flying out of the arena. The hall gasped. Match 3. Gu Yanhua vs. Feng Yizhu, Wind R6. Yanhua assumed her stance. She clenched her fists. White sparks danced between her fingers. The gong sounded. Feng Yizhu unleashed the wind blade. Yanhua exhaled before the second character. All the air left her lungs. Her body relaxed for a split second. Thunder rushed through her like through an open pipe. The strike was 1.5 times more powerful than anything Yanhua had ever done in her life. Lightning shot through the wind blade and struck Feng Yizhu right in the shoulder. The girl was spun around in midair and hurled onto a rock. Yanhua stood there, unable to believe her own eyes. The number on her token flickered. R4 became R4.3. In Wuji's mind, the first shard of truth fell. He felt it like a drop of hot metal in the center of his forehead. One shard. The principle of thunder. Concentrate. The duels followed one after another. Not all ended in victory. 3 of Yu's students lost quickly. They hadn't listened. 2 others held out longer than usual but ultimately fell. But 7 had listened. And of those 7, 5 won. Then another pulled through thanks to her stubbornness. Then Yanhua crushed her second opponent in a row when she was allowed to enter the extra round. The result: Class U had 9 wins out of 12. The arena was silent. Bai Zhaoyue stood in the center of her formation, her face expressionless. For the first time in 3 years, Class Jia had lost the freshman tournament. She turned her head and looked at the bench for those who had been eliminated. There sat a boy in a black uniform with a 0.00 badge. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the registry in the courtyard. At midnight, the stone updated. 4 names from the bottom 20 lines shot up into the top 100. Lin Xiaowan climbed 47 spots. Mu Qiao rose 62. Gu Yanhua moved up 89. In the gallery, one of the senior masters dropped her cup. The porcelain shattered against the stone in complete silence. Rector Yun Qinghe silently stood up and went to her tower. That night, she opened her personal diary and wrote that student number 7 was not a mage. He was a lens. Through him, the academy saw for the first time just how much it had undertaught the others. That was more frightening than his height. Wuji lay in his room. There were 18 shards. The token read 0.00. He could have accelerated his growth, but he didn't. Let the number stay at 0. Let everyone see 0. The longer they stare at 0, the harder the blow will be when the numbers break loose. He closed his eyes. Haoyan's face stood out in the darkness. A gentle smile. I'll come back for you, brother. But first, I need a name. The freshman tournament. Uzi gave each student 1 adjustment. Class U won 9 out of 12 matches. 4 names shot into the top 100 of the registry. Uzi received 18 shards of truth, but is hiding his growth. His token remains at 0.00. Bai Zhaoyue noticed him. The next morning, the door to Class U's lecture hall was locked from the outside. The lock had been melted. Fire element. Neat work. R7 at minimum. 12 students stood in the hallway, staring at the blackened metal. Lin Xiaowan touched the lock and pulled her hand away. It was hot. Yanhua cursed under her breath. Mu Qiao remained silent. Wu Ji approached and looked through the eye. The structure of the fire spell was multi-layered. 14 nodes. Not a student's work. A mentor or a senior adept. He spotted a distinctive flourish in the structure. A mage's signature. Every mage forms the nodes slightly differently. He'd seen that flourish before. Yesterday in the arena. One of the instructors from Class Jia. R7. Element of fire. Someone had asked the instructor to seal the door. Wuji didn't say this out loud. He looked at the lock for 3 seconds. He saw a weak node. the 9th out of 14.
It had been set with a microscopic gap.
He poked his finger right into that gap. The spell burst. The lock clicked. The door opened. 12 pairs of eyes stared at him. Zero had just broken the R7 spell with a single finger. Yanhua opened her mouth and closed it again. Mu Qiao tilted her head slightly. Xiao Wan stared at his finger as if it were a weapon. Wu Ji walked into the auditorium and sat down in his seat. He said the lock was just old. No one believed him, but no one asked any questions. The first week after the tournament was strange. For the first time, Class U wasn't invisible. In the cafeteria, middle school students turned to look at them. In the hallways, people whispered. 4 names from the graduating class in the top 100 of the registry. That had never happened before. And next to those 4 names, a black uniform with a dead token always loomed. Bai Zhao Yue acted quickly. On the 3rd day after the tournament, Class-wise training hall was closed for renovations. Without warning. With no set timeline. Uzi checked via the eye. The hall was in perfect condition. The request for renovations had been signed by the Academy's maintenance director.
Next to the signature was the Bai House seal, a sponsorship seal. On the 4th day, the Class U instructor called in sick. On the 5th, he was replaced by a new one. The new instructor conducted training sessions using an outdated program and didn't correct mistakes. He didn't sabotage things openly, he simply didn't teach. Uzi watched. He kept track. Without a training hall, the students lost 2 hours a day searching for an available space. Without a proper instructor, their progress slowed. After a week, the momentum from the tournament began to fade. Yanhua grew increasingly angry. Xiaowan was on edge. 2 of the students who had lost in the tournament began skipping classes. Morale was falling. Bai Zhao Yue hadn't done anything that could be held against her. Not a single direct hit, just minor hiccups in the system. Wu Ji recognized this. She wasn't just strong, she was smart. That made her more dangerous. By the end of the 2nd week, he had made a decision. That evening, he went to see Lin Xiaowan. She was sitting on the roof of the academic building, watching the sunset. Uji sat down beside her. He said he could accelerate her growth by a factor of 2. Xiaowan turned to face him. He explained briefly. The resonance seal, a connection between his consciousness and her meridian. Her growth would accelerate. 10% of that growth would go to him, a side effect. She would sense his presence within a radius of 100 steps. He would be able to see the state of her meridian at any moment. Xiaowan was silent for a long time. Then she asked why he needed this. He replied that he needed a name. She asked which one. He said his own. She looked into his eyes. There was something strange there. Not pity, not fear. Something like recognition. As if she had heard something like this before. From someone who had also lost their name. She nodded. Wu Ji placed the seal. The procedure was simple. He touched her forehead with 2 fingers and sent a thin thread of clarity through the eye. The thread connected his consciousness to the root node of her light vein. Xiaowan flinched. Her token flickered. R3 briefly became R3.1, then R3.2. The flickering stopped. But the course had been set. Over the next 3 days, Uzi placed the seal on 4 more people. Yanhua agreed instantly. She didn't need explanations. She needed power. Mu Qiao nodded silently.
2 students from the middle of the class agreed after some hesitation. 5 seals, 5 threads, 10% of 5 increments. The shards began to fall more frequently. Every time one of the 5 exceeded her limit by even the slightest margin, a drop of hot metal fell into Uzi's consciousness. A shard of truth. The principle of light from Xiaowan. The principle of thunder from Yanhua. The principle of earth from Mu Qiao. In 3 days, another 12 shards were added to the 18, a total of 30. Uzi's hidden level rose to R1, but the token still showed 0.00. It wouldn't let him glow. The eye allowed him to control the token's external glow. Let them look at 0. In the 4th week, the average R of Class U rose from 3.2 to 4.1. Xiaowan surpassed R4. Yanhua reached R5 and continued to rise at an alarming rate. Mu Qiao remained steady at R3.8, but her shield could now withstand an R6 strike without cracking. The rankings were updated every week. Names crept upward, slowly but surely. Class U broke out of the bottom 20, every single one of them. For the first time in history, not a single name from the lowest class was at the bottom of the list.
This did not go unnoticed. A nickname began circulating in the academy's hallways. At first, it was whispered by the middle-class students, then the upperclassmen, then the mentors, the Dark Mentor, the guy in black with the dead badge who turns underachievers into fighters. No one knew how. Everyone saw the result. Bai Zhao Yue heard that nickname in the third week. She was standing in the hallway, talking to two students from Class Bing. They were discussing how Yanhua had broken through a 3-layer shield with a single strike during training. Bai Zhao Yue didn't interrupt. She listened to the end. Then she turned and walked away. That evening, she wrote a letter to her mother at the Council of the Seven Towers. The contents of the letter Wuji didn't know, but the next day, Wen Jun received a request from the disciplinary committee. An investigation into Class U regarding the use of prohibited enhancement methods. Wen Jun summoned Wuji. He stood before her in her office. She said a complaint had been filed, that a male observer was allegedly using an unknown technique to influence the female students. That the complaint was worded as follows.
The man is seducing the female students through an unknown seal. Wuji's expression did not change. He asked who had filed the complaint. Wen Jun replied that it was anonymous. Wuji said that the seal existed, that it was a method of resonance amplification based on voluntary consent, that every student would confirm that she had consented of her own free will, that there was no ban on resonance connections in the academy's charter. Wen Jun looked at him for a long time. Then she said that an investigation would be conducted and that until it was completed, he must not place any new seals. Wuji nodded and left. He stopped in the hallway. His eye revealed the structure of the seal spell on the door to Wen Jun's office. Standard protection. But on top of the standard layer lay a second one. Thin, imperceptible. A layer that recorded every word spoken inside and transmitted it to the blood faculty. Wen Jun's office was being bugged. He Lianshu heard everything. Wuji smirked. For the first time in 4 weeks, the smirk was brief and cold. He thought of Hao Yan, of the porridge laced with poison, of the gentle smile. 2 players on the board.
Bai Zhao Yue played openly. He Lianshu played in silence. Both thought he was the piece. Wuji walked down the hallway, counting the shards. 30. He needed 100 to reach R2. The check would slow the student's growth. That means it will slow down the flow of shards. That means he needs another source. He remembered the strange pulsation in He Lianshu's office. Something alive behind the wall. Something that produced shards without relying on others' growth. Dangerous. But he had no choice but to play it safe. Safety ended that morning when he ate porridge from his brother's hands. Bai Zhao Yue began her sabotage. She closed the training hall and replaced the instructor. Wuji placed a resonance seal on 5 students. The average R of Class U rose to 4.1. Bai Zhao Yue filed an anonymous report about the seal. Wuji discovered that Wen Jun's office was being bugged by He Lianshu. Wuji has 30 shards, hidden R1. The investigation lasted 5 days. 5 days without any new seals. 5 days during which Wuji could not work directly with the female students during training. The disciplinary committee questioned all 5 of them. Xiaowan spoke calmly and precisely. Yanhua snapped at the 3rd question and nearly derailed the hearing. Mu Qiao answered in monosyllables, and every word was like a stone placed exactly where it belonged. The other 2 were nervous, but confirmed that their participation was voluntary. The committee found no violations. The Bai Yue Charter contained no prohibition on resonant connections between students. Formally, Wuji was not a student. He was an observer. But the wording of Directive Number 7 did not restrict his methods as long as they caused no harm. The seal caused no harm. The seal amplified. The committee closed the investigation.
Bai Zhou learned of this within the hour. Wuji saw through the eye how her veins flared. The temperature of her skin's surface spiked by 2 degrees. The fire element responded to its mistress's rage. She was standing by the fountain in the inner courtyard, talking to 2 girls from Class U. Wuji recognized them. Zhou Mei and Tang Ruishui. Both were among the 7 who were not bound by the seal. Both had lost their matches in the tournament. Both were angry that their classmates were advancing while they were not. Bai Zhou spoke to them quietly. She was smiling.
Her hands were relaxed. Her voice was soft. Uzi read her lips through the eye from a distance of 40 steps. She promised to transfer to Class Jia, access to senior instructors, private training sessions with R8 masters, everything that Class U couldn't provide, everything that the Bai House offered. Zhou Mei was the first to nod. Tang Ruishui hesitated for another 3 seconds. Then she nodded too. The next morning, both of them submitted their transfer applications. Class U was reduced to 10 students. Uji learned about this from Xiao Wan. She came to him looking pale. She said that Zhou Mei had gathered her things from the lecture hall and, on her way out, had said she wasn't going to be a guinea pig for a 0. Tang Ruishui had left without a word. Xiao Wan asked what to do. Uzi replied, "Nothing." He said that those who leave make room for those who will come. Xiao Wan didn't understand, but she nodded. The loss of 2 students was a blow to morale. Yanhua wanted to go to Bai Zhou and tell him exactly what she thought. Wuji stopped her with a single sentence. He said that shouting was a waste of energy into the void, that one must respond with numbers. Yanhua gritted her teeth but stayed. Wuji decided not to wait. He hadn't wasted the 5 days of observation. Every night he went out onto the tower's roof and looked at the island through the eye. He studied the flows of magic, the routes, the schedules, the patrol's blind spots, and most importantly, he watched Helion Shu's office. Every night the pulsation behind the office wall grew more distinct. On the 3rd night, Uzi realized what it was. Not an artifact, not a spell, a living creature. Small, locked inside a container made of magical metal. The pulsation was rhythmic, like a heartbeat, but the pattern was irregular. Too many nodes for a living being, too little chaos. It was a creature that someone had modified. On the 5th night of his investigations, Wuji told Mu Chao. He chose her because she was quiet, because she knew how to keep silent, because her eyes were attentive and calm. He said that there was something in He Lianshu's office that shouldn't be there, that the office was bugging mentor Wei Jun, that He Lianshu was playing a game parallel to Bai Zhou, but on a different level. Mu Chao listened without interrupting. Then she asked one question. She asked what He Lianshu wanted from him. Wu Ji replied that he didn't know yet, but that the phrase observed subject in decree number 7 was not there by accident. Mu Chao nodded. She said she had access to the lower-level archive of the library. A lab assistant from the Earth Department gave her a key for the night in exchange for help with cataloging. The lower-level archive bordered the basements of the Blood Department. Wu Ji looked at her. Mu Chao looked back at him. Neither of them uttered the word espionage. They both understood. The inspection ended on Friday. On Saturday morning, Uji returned to training. 10 students instead of 12, but 5 of the 10 were bound by the seal and were growing twice as fast. The shards began to rain down again. 30 became 36 on the first day, 42 on the second, 51 on the third. Each shard fell into her consciousness and dissolved. Uji felt something warm slowly rising inside her. Not magic in the usual sense, not fire, not ice. Something else. Empty and dense at the same time, like a space waiting to be filled, like a vessel that knows its shape but does not yet know its contents. In the 5th week, he tried for the first time to use the shards, not for growth, but for analysis. He sat on the roof at night and focused his eye on the main register below. A black stone. 300 names. He wasn't looking at the names. He was looking at the structure of the stone itself. And he saw. The register wasn't just a list.
It was a spell, an ancient one, a complex one. Hundreds of knots woven into the stone. Every name on the wall was tied to its owner's vein by an invisible thread. The registry didn't just display power. It measured it in real time and transmitted the data. Where to? Wuji traced the threads. They led downward, underground, through the island's foundation, to a point the eye could not penetrate. Too deep, too strong a defense. But he memorized the direction. Directly beneath the main registry, deep within the floating island, something was hidden. Something that fed on data about the power of 300 students. In the 6th week, Mu Qiao brought back her first catch. She made her way into the basement corridor bordering the blood department. She didn't go inside. She just peered through a crack in the stonework.
She told Wuji that she had seen a long hall with 12 glass containers. 11 were empty. In the 12th lay a body. Small, about the size of a cat, but shaped like a human, with a jade token on its chest. The token read 0.00. Wuji listened and a chill ran through him. Not from fear, from recognition. 0. 0 was lying in the container, modified, locked away, being used. Mu Qiao added that there was a sign hanging on the wall of the hall. 4 characters. Project empty heart. Wuji closed his eyes. He opened them. His eyes burned brighter than usual. He told Mu Qiao that she needed to forget about it for now, that she shouldn't go back there, that if He Lianshu noticed, she'd be finished. Mu Qiao looked at him and replied that she wouldn't forget, but she wouldn't go back. Not yet. Wuji nodded. That night, he lay awake. Fragment 51. Hidden R 1.5. Token 0.00. In the basement of the Faculty of Blood lay a creature that had once been just like him. A 0. He Lianshu was no benefactor. He was no observer. He was a collector. And Wuji was the next exhibit. Not now. Right now, he was running. Right now, he was interesting. But when he stopped being interesting, they'd put him in the 13th container. Wuji clenched his fists in the darkness. His fingers were cold. His eye flickered behind his closed eyelids. He had to become stronger, faster. Before He Lianshu decided the experiment was over. He had to become so strong that no container could hold him. Before dawn, he got up. He went out onto the roof. He looked toward the continent. Somewhere out there, beyond the clouds, stood the Chen clan's house on a hill. Somewhere out there, Hao Yan was waking up in his room, next to his former fiancée, in his former bed. Wuji, he whispered into the pre-dawn air. He said this isn't revenge. It's repaying a debt. Every debt will be repaid with interest. The sky was beginning to lighten. The floating island drifted above the clouds. Below, in the basement, a stranger's heart was beating. Upstairs in the tower, He Lianshu was sleeping. And standing between them was a guy with a 0.00 token and eyes that saw every crack in the world. The 2nd month was beginning. Mu Qiao had been missing for 2 days. Wuji noticed this in the morning when her seat in the lecture hall was empty.
Xiao Wan said that Mu Qiao hadn't returned to her room after her night shift at the library. Wuji gave nothing away with his expression, but his eye flashed. He scanned the island. 10 threads of the seal stretched toward 10 female students. 5 bright ones, 5 ordinary ones. Mu Qiao's thread was in place, dim but alive. She was somewhere below, beneath the main level, deep down. Wuji closed his eyes and concentrated. The thread led to the basements, not to the part where Mu Qiao had seen the containers. Further on, to the left, into a room that wasn't on the academy's floor plan. He found her that evening. He had to wait until dark. Patrols made their rounds through the lower levels every 40 minutes. Wuji had studied the route over 3 nights of surveillance. There was an 11-minute window between patrols. Enough time to go down the side staircase and walk 300 steps down the Earth Faculty corridor to the intersection with the blood basements. Mu Qiao was sitting in a stone niche behind a grate.
unharmed. No visible injuries. But her token was flickering strangely. R3.8 flickered like a flame in the wind and dropped to R3.5. Then it returned. Someone was draining energy from her. Slowly. Little by little. Like a leech. The bars were sealed with a blood spell, R8 at a minimum. Uzi looked through the eye and saw the structure. 22 nodes. A complex pattern. But the principle was the same as with any lock. Find the weak node. Press it. He found it. The 14th. Set with the characteristic carelessness of a mage who does this often and assumes no one will bother to climb down into the basement. Wuji tapped it with his finger. The grate clicked. Mu Qiao raised her head. Her eyes were cloudy. She said it wasn't He Lianshu who had caught her. It was his assistant, a young woman in white. R7, element of blood. She had found Mu Qiao in the hallway next to the lab and silently cast a subjugation spell on her. Mu Qiao had lost consciousness and woke up here. The assistant had come twice. She'd taken blood. 3 test tubes. Mu Qiao had seen her record the results in a logbook. There was a number on the cover. 7. The same number as in Wuji's enrollment decree. Wuji helped Mu Qiao stand up. She staggered. He steadied her. The seal's thread between them pulsed, and Wuji felt a shard of earth fall into his consciousness. Not from growth, from regeneration. Mu Qiao was clinging to her level and, without realizing it, was generating shards of resistance. The 52nd. They made it upstairs in 9 minutes. 2 minutes remained before the patrol's rounds. Mu Qiao reached her room and collapsed onto the bed. Wu Ji wiped the traces off the hallway floor with his sleeve. He returned to his own room. He sat down at the table. His hands didn't tremble. His mind was clear. His eyes burned with a cold, steady light. He Lianshu didn't know that Mu Qiao was his scout. An assistant had caught a random intruder in the restricted zone. Standard procedure. Detain, take samples, release in 3 days. Don't make a fuss. If He Lianshu had known that Mu Qiao was connected to Wu Ji, he wouldn't have let her go. He would have used her as leverage. So for now, Wu Ji remains invisible to him. For now. 2 days later, Mu Qiao returned to training. No one except Wu Ji and Xiao Wan knew where she had been. Mu Qiao told the others that she had been sick. Yan Hua looked at her for a long time but said nothing. Wu Ji adjusted his strategy. Direct reconnaissance of the basements was off the table. Too dangerous. It was too early. He needed to grow faster. 52 shards. There were 48 left until R2. To have a real chance of protecting himself and his students, he needed at least R4. And that meant 400 shards. At his current rate of 8 to 10 a week, that would take almost a year. He didn't have a year. Bai Zhao Yue was picking up the pace. In the 7th week, she made her next move. An announcement appeared on the registry's bulletin board. A duel of honor. A student from Class Jia challenges a student from Class U. Challenger. Qian Liu Shui. R6.5. Ice element. Heiress of a house allied with Bai. Defendant. Lin Xiaowan. R4.2. Element of light. The terms of the duel of honor permitted injuries up to the fracture of a single limb. Refusal to duel meant a drop of 3 positions in the registry and a public admission of weakness. Wu Ji read the announcement and looked at Xiao Wan. She was standing nearby, her face pale. Her hands were steady. She asked when. Wu Ji replied that it would be in 5 days. She nodded. 5 days. R4.2 versus R6.5. A gap of more than 2 levels. Under normal circumstances, that's a death sentence. Xiao Wan isn't a fighter. She's a healer. Her light is geared toward diagnosis and healing, not attack. But Uji saw through the eye what no one else could see. Qian Liu Shui's efficiency was 34%. Her ice formed slowly. 3 seconds for a basic spell. 2 of her 12 nodes were compromised. She compensated with brute force. R6.5 allowed for that.
But what if Xiao Wan didn't give her time to cast? What if she closed in and forced her to rely on reflexes? Qian Liu Shui's reflexes were slow, a luxury of a powerful mage. Why be fast when you're 2 levels above everyone around you? Wuji began training Xiao Wan personally. Every morning from 5 to 6. Every evening from 9 to 10. Right up until curfew. He didn't teach her to attack. He taught her to move. Step to the left. Step to the right. Tilt your torso 15 degrees. Shift your center of gravity in half a second. Xiao Wan stumbled. She fell. She got up. She fell again. On the 3rd day, she stopped falling. On the 4th, she began moving so fast that Wuji could barely keep up with his commands. His eyes were working at full capacity. He saw every one of her movements as a set of lines and angles. He adjusted every angle. 1 degree this way, half a degree that way. Shards rained down. Over 5 days of training, Xiao Wan generated 23 shards. Her R rose from 4.2 to 4.6. Wuji had collected 75 shards. His hidden R had surpassed R 1.8. The token read 0.00. Duel day. The arena. Packed stands. Not like at the first-year tournament. Much bigger. Word of the duel had spread throughout the academy. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. The Dark Mentor's student versus the heiress of the allied Bai house. Bai Zhao Yue sat in the front row. Her face was calm. Her hands rested on her knees. Next to her were 2 defectors from Class Y, Zhou Mei and Tang Rui Shui. Both wore scarlet jia dresses. Both tried not to look in the direction of their former classmates. Wu Ji sat on the U class bench. Next to him was Yan Hua. Behind her was Mu Qiao. The remaining 7. 10 pairs of eyes in the arena. Xiao Wan stepped onto the white stone. Qian Liu Shui was already standing in the center. Tall. Cold. Ice steamed from her palms like vapor from a frozen river. The gong sounded. Qian Liu Shui raised her hand. She began the formation. Ice Pillar. A classic R6 spell. 12 nodes. 3 seconds. Xiao Wan didn't wait. She stepped forward. Not backward. Not to the side. Forward. Straight at Qian Liu Shui. Qian Liu Shui blinked. No one from R4 ever engages an R6 in close combat. It's suicide. Xiao Wan took a 2nd step. A 3rd. A 4th. By the 4th step, she was within striking range. Qian Liu Shui cast the Ice Pillar. It was incomplete. 10 knots out of 12. Xiao Wan tilted her torso 15 degrees to the left. The pillar whizzed past her right shoulder. H. The cold seared the fabric. The dress split at the sleeve. But it didn't touch her body. Xiao Wan thrust her hand forward. Not a fist, an open palm. Light. Not an attack. Diagnostic. She pressed her palm against Qian Liu Shui's chest and sent a pulse of light straight into the root node of her ice vein. It wasn't an attack. It was a medical procedure. Diagnostic resonance. No one used it in battle because it dealt no damage. But it did something else. It overloaded the mage's perception for 2 seconds. Qian Liu Shui's brain received a complete report on the state of her own meridian. All the nodes, all the flows, all the cracks, all at once. As if you were shown an X-ray of all your organs simultaneously. Qian Liu Shui froze. Her eyes widened. 2 unstable nodes in her vein rang out with feedback. The ice on her hands faded. For a 1.5 seconds, she was not an R6.5 mage, but a bewildered girl standing with her mouth agape. Xiao Wan struck her forehead with a palm of light. A short pulse. R4.6 unleashed in full. Qian Liu Shui was sent flying 3 steps back and fell outside the boundary. The arena was silent for 4 seconds. Then it erupted. The lower stands were screaming. The middle stands leapt to their feet. The upper stands exchanged glances. Yan Hua leapt from her bench and screamed so loudly that sparks of thunder rained down from her hair. Bai Zhao Yue didn't move a muscle. Only the fingers on her knees had turned white. Wu Ji sat and counted. 23 shards from preparation, plus 8 from the match itself, plus a wave of reaction from the 5 seals. All 5 of his students were now experiencing a surge and generating 2 or 3 shards each, a total of 98 shards, almost 100. Hidden R1.98, on the verge of a 2. The token is dead, 0.00. Perfect. In the faculty gallery, Wenjun smiled for the first time in a month. Rector Yun Qinghe sat next to her, making a note in her journal. And even higher up, on the blood faculty balcony, stood a silhouette in a dark robe. Master Helion R. 10. He wasn't looking at the arena. He was looking at Wuji. Wuji's eyes sensed that gaze like the touch of a needle against the back of his neck. Cold. Precise. Appraising. Helion Shu saw something. Not the eye, not the shards, but something. And that something interested him. Wuji didn't turn around. He didn't lift his head. He was looking at the register in the courtyard and waiting for the midnight update. That night, the stone creaked. Lin Xiaowan climbed another 22 positions. She entered the top 50. Wuji stood by the window and watched. Hidden R was nearly 2. There was no smile on his lips, only a cold line. Hao Yen, you sent me here to finish me off. And here I am, learning to pick locks with a single finger. Soon I'll get to yours, too. In the 8th week, a new student knocked on the door of Class U. He Jingyi, R5.4, wind element, formerly of Class Jia. She stood in the doorway of the lecture hall with her belongings in her hands and a bruise on her cheekbone. Yan Hua looked at her and stood up. A silence hung between them. Jingyi and Yan Hua knew each other. 3 weeks ago, during Class Jia training, Jingyi had made a mistake while forming the wind blade. Bai Zhao Yue had corrected her in front of everyone. Not with words, with the fire whip across her palm. R8 versus R5.4. Her palm was burned to the bone. The healer healed it within a day. The scar remained. Jingyi said nothing at the time. A week later, Bai Zhao Yue ordered her to write a denunciation against Wuji. A personal one, with details she was supposed to make up. Jingyi refused. Bai Zhao Yue struck her again. Not with the whip, with her fist. In the face. In front of 2 female witnesses who looked away. The next morning, Jingyi submitted a request to transfer to Class Y. She didn't explain why. The bruise spoke for her. Wuji accepted her in silence. He looked through the eye. Element of wind. Efficiency, 36%. She was in good health. Powerful. At least R7 potential if she corrected 3 key errors in her breathing cycle. And one more thing. Jingyi had trained in Class Jia for 3 years. She knew all their techniques, all their formations, every weakness of every student. She was a walking map of enemy territory. Wuji placed the seal on her that very evening. The 6th thread. The 6th stream of shards. 98 became 100. Her hidden R surpassed 2. He felt nothing. No flash, no breakthrough. Just a number changed in his mind. Quietly. Like the click of a lock. R2 meant that Uzi could now cast the simplest spells, not elemental ones. He didn't possess an element in the usual sense, but the Eye of the 9 Truths granted access to something else. Shards of different elements within his mind began to interact. Thunder from Yanhua, light from Xiaowan, earth from Mu Qiao, wind from Jingyi. The 4 elements mingled and gave birth to a 5th. Not fire, not ice, not blood. Void. That very sensation of an empty vessel grew denser. Uzi could now project the void within arm's reach, not like a strike, more like a nullification. A zone where an opponent's magic ceased to function. The radius was small. It lasted 1.5 seconds. It was powerful enough only against spells of R3 and below. Useless in battle against a serious opponent. But it was a start. The first sprout of the 8th meridian, which had officially not existed for 1,000 years. Wuji didn't tell anyone. Not even Xiaowan. Not even Mu Qiao. It was his. Only his. Cold. Quiet. Growing. In the 9th week, Bai Zhao Yue struck a blow that Wuji hadn't expected. Not at him. At Yanhua. Gu Yanhua was walking through the courtyard from the training ground that evening, alone. 3 female students emerged from the shadows between the columns. Not from the Jia class, from Class 1, intermediate level, R5 each. Nothing special. But there were 3 of them, and they struck simultaneously. Without warning, without a challenge. Just 3 spells to her back. Fire, ice, earth. Yanhua reacted on instinct. Thunder lashed out behind her in a semicircle. She parried 2 of the 3. The third strike hit her left shoulder. The ice spike pierced her muscle and lodged there. Yanhua fell to one knee. She spun around. Her eyes burned white. Lightning danced across her entire body. She was ready to kill. The 3 students retreated. One dropped a scroll on the ground. An official challenge to a duel on behalf of Class 1. Retroactive. Drafted an hour before the attack. Formally, they were within their rights. The challenge had been issued. The duel had begun. The injury was sustained within the bounds of the duel. Yanhua picked up the scroll with her left hand.
Her right arm hung limply. The ice blade was still protruding from her shoulder. Blood was flowing down her black sleeve. Xiao Wan found her 10 minutes later. She pulled out the blade and healed the wound with light. The muscle would recover in a week, but her right hand wouldn't be able to cast thunder spells for at least 3 days. Wuji arrived and silently examined the wound through the eye. The damage to the tendon was minimal. Xiao Wan had handled it well. But 3 days without her right hand meant 3 days of vulnerability. He asked Jing Yi if she knew who in Class 1 was connected to Bai Zhaoyue. Jing Yi knew. 3 students were indebted to the Bai House. Their families received scholarships from a sponsorship fund. Bai Zhaoyue didn't give direct orders. She hinted. And the hint was more dangerous than an order because the trail led nowhere. Uzi sat in Yanhua's room while Xiao Wan finished the treatment. Yanhua stared at the ceiling. She didn't complain. She didn't curse. She was silent. That was worse than a scream. A silent Yanhua was a dangerous Yanhua. Wu Ji told her one thing.
He said that in 3 weeks, the qualifiers for the Great Seven Towers tournament would begin. That Bai Zhuwei would be there. That Class Jia would be there. And that Yanhua would be her in the arena. Not in a dark courtyard, not from behind. Face to face. In full view of the entire continent. Yanhua turned her head and looked at him. White sparks danced in her eyes. She said one word. Okay? Wu Ji had 114 shards. Hidden P 2.1. The growth was accelerating. The 6 seals worked like 6 pumps. Every day, each student pushed past a small limit and dropped a shard into his consciousness. Xiao Wan reached R 4.8. Yanhua reached R 5.5. And not even an injury stopped her growth. The Thunder Vein was operating at 41%, almost double what it was at the start. Mu Qiao grew steadily to R 4.2. Jing Yi jumped from R 5.4 to R 6.1 in 2 weeks. She was the fastest. 3 years at Jia had taught her body the proper fundamentals. Uzi simply removed the restraints, and her body took off. The average R for Class U reached 4.8. It had been 3.2, an average increase of 1.5 levels in 2 months. It was unthinkable. The rankings were updated every week, and each time, the U students' names climbed higher. The entire class made it into the top 200. 4 were in the top 100. Yanhua was ranked 67th. Xiao Wan was 48th. Jing Yi was 54th. Mu Qiao was 91st. The whispers in the hallways grew louder. The dark mentor. The guy with the dead token. Some female students from other classes began approaching the U girls and asking questions. What does he do? How? Is it possible to get in with him? One student from Class Bing came straight to Wuji. R4. Fire element. She said she wanted the seal. Wuji looked through the eye. Efficiency, 24%. She was in good health. She had potential. He refused. Not because he didn't want to, because 6 seals were the limit. The Eye of the 9 Truths could sustain 6 threads simultaneously, and each one cost him clarity of mind. A seventh thread meant that at a critical moment, the eye might shut down for a second longer. A second in battle means death. He told his student that he couldn't. She left disappointed. A day later, the entire academy knew about his refusal. And strangely enough, this strengthened his reputation. He's selective. He doesn't take everyone. That means those he did accept are special. That means Class U isn't just a bunch of lucky ones. They are the chosen ones. In the 10th week, the announcement arrived. Qualifiers for the Great Tournament of the Seven Towers. Format: each class fields a team of 5, 4 fighters and 1 tactician. The tactician doesn't enter the arena, but can give instructions by voice. Wuji read that twice. Tactician. Voice instructions. Legal. He could stand at the edge of the arena and dictate every move, every angle, every strike. That changed everything. He assembled a team. Yan Hua, Xiao Wan, Jing Yi, Mu Qiao, and himself as the tactician. 5 of them. Mu Qiao asked who they'd face in the first round. Wuji replied that the draw would take place in 3 days, but that it didn't matter, because they had to make it to the finals. And in the finals would be Class Jia and Bai Zhao Yue. Yan Hua clenched her left fist. Her right hand was already at work. Xiao Wan nodded. Jing Yi smiled. It was the first time in 2 weeks at Yu. Mu Qiao silently took out her notebook and began taking notes. Wuji stood by the window. The moon hung over the white rooftops. The token in his pocket read 0.00. Hidden P2, 1. 114 shards. The emptiness in his palms was growing denser. Not yet a weapon, no longer emptiness. Something in between. And somewhere on the continent, at the headquarters of the Order of the Crimson Dawn, his younger brother was drawing power from a source that shouldn't exist. The clock was ticking. He Jingyi had transferred from Class Jia to Class Yu after a conflict with Bai Zhao Yu. Wuji had reached Hidden R2 and discovered the beginnings of the Void. Yan Hua was wounded in a set-up duel. Qualifications for the Grand Tournament were announced. Wuji became the team's tactician. 114 shards. Hidden R2.1. The draw pitted Class Yu against Class Ding in the first round. Class Ding. Average R 5.2. Solid mid-tier team. Not a single star, but not a single weak link either. Their captain, Luo Zhenning, was an Earth R 5.8. Tight defense, slow offense. A wall that needs to be worn down. Wuji studied them for 2 days. His eyes were on the Ding team's training sessions from the gallery. He sat in the upper stands and watched. Every stance, every exhale, every knot. Luo Zhenning's efficiency was 40%. Good. Better than Bai Zhao Yu's. An honest, hard worker. Wuji almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The first round of qualifying. The arena. The stands are 2/3 full. Not a sellout. It's an early stage. The sellout will be in the final. A 4-on-4 format. 4 singles matches. The team that wins 3 matches advances. The tactician stands at the edge of the arena behind the barrier. Wuji took his place. Black uniform. Token 0.00. The stands began to murmur. A 0 in the tactician's position. Luo Zhenning looked at him across the arena. She frowned, but said nothing. First match. Mu Qiao versus Ding student. R 4.8. Fire. Uzi leaned toward the barrier and spoke. Quietly. Just for Mu Qiao. He said, "Third node on the left. Shield angled at 20 degrees. Don't move for 3 seconds." Mu Qiao listened and obeyed. Her body moved like a machine. Precise. No excess. Her opponent struck with fire at the center of the shield. The shield was angled. The fire slid across the surface and vanished into nothingness. Her opponent struck again. And again, the shield deflected the flame. On the 4th strike, her opponent grew angry and poured everything into a single blast. Uzi said, "Step to the right. Strike the 6th node, now." Mu Qiao stepped forward and struck with an earth fist, hitting the opponent's shield's weak node precisely. The shield cracked. Ding's student was sent flying past the boundary. The match lasted 40 seconds. The stands roared. The second match. Jingyi versus Ice R 5.3. Uzi didn't have time to say a word. Jingyi charged forward on her own. The wind lashed across the arena. 3 strikes, 2 feints. The third was real. She knew Ding's moves because they'd analyzed them in tactical training at Jia. She didn't need any hints. She needed speed. 9 seconds. Her opponent didn't even realize what had happened. Jingyi's token flashed. R6.1 became R6.3. A shard of wind fell into Wuji's consciousness. 115. The third match. Xiaowan versus R5.1 of the wind. Xiaowan stepped out calmly. Her arms were relaxed. Her stride was steady. Wuji was silent. Xiaowan didn't need words. She could see for herself. 2 months under his eye had taught her to sense others' weaknesses. Not to see as he did, to feel, through the vibration of light in her palms. She moved in close. Her opponent stepped back. Xiaowan took another step. The distance closed to 0.
Diagnostic resonance.
A hand on her chest. A flash of light. Her opponent froze for a second and a half. Xiaowan pushed her past the line with her palm, without magic, physically. R4.8 pushed R5, one out of the arena like a sack. The stands gasped. 3-0. Class U advanced without a fourth match. Yan Hua didn't enter the arena. She sat on the bench, clenching her fists. Her fight had been stolen. Wu Ji looked at her and said her fight was still to come, that it would be worth more. Yan Hua looked him in the eyes and nodded. Round 2. Class Bing. Average R5.6, stronger than Ding. 2 students above R6. Captain Jiang Hui, R6.2 Ice. Wu Ji had studied them again over the course of the day. His eyes saw everything. Every crack, every weakness, every loose knot. Yan Hua had lost the first match. She'd been waiting 2 weeks. Her hand had healed. Thunder boiled inside her like superheated steam. Wu Ji said just one word. Exhale. Yan Hua exhaled. The thunder passed through her like through an open pipe. Lightning struck her opponent, a R5.8, and hurled her across the entire arena. She flew 4 meters and crashed into the barrier. The healers rushed out onto the stone.
Her opponent was alive, unconscious. A second-degree burn on her left forearm. The fight lasted 3 seconds. The silence in the stands was so thick, you could hear the residual thunder crackling on the arena stones. Yan Hua's token showed P5.8. She crossed the threshold and continued to grow. A shard of thunder fell into Wu Ji, heavy and hot. 116. Wu Ji fought the 3 remaining bouts methodically. Mu Qiao wore down her opponent in a minute and pushed her out of bounds. Jingyi took down Captain Jiang Hui in 20 seconds. She knew all her moves by heart. Xiaowan finished the 4th match in 30 seconds with a new move. She had learned not just to diagnose, she had learned to suppress. Light entered her opponent's meridian and silenced her for 5 seconds. No, it wasn't dangerous, but 5 seconds was enough. 4-0. Class U advanced to the semifinals. In the hallway after the match, mentor Wen Jun approached Wu Ji. She said the semifinals were in a week, that Class U's opponent would be determined tomorrow, and that she'd been ordered to deliver an invitation to him. Master Helyun Shu was inviting him for tea. Tomorrow, in his office, to the blood faculty. Uzi looked at Wen Jun. She didn't look away. But there was a warning in her gaze, not verbal, but physical. Pursed lips, slightly slumped shoulders, the body language of someone saying, "Be careful," without uttering a sound. Uzi nodded. The next day, he went up to the 3rd floor of the central tower. The corridor of the Faculty of Blood was dark. Not from a lack of light. The lamps were on. But the light here was different, heavy, reddish. It revealed the structure. The entire corridor was imbued with a blood spell, an ancient one, a multi-layered one. It didn't attack, it monitored. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat was recorded in the walls. Helian Shu knew everything that was happening in his corridor. The office. The door opened on its own. Inside, it was neat and tidy. A desk, 2 chairs, a tea set, a window overlooking the arena, and Helian Shu. He was sitting at the desk, smiling. Short, thin, a smooth face. His age was indeterminate. He could have been 40, he could have been 60. His eyes revealed his element, and Wuji barely managed to keep a straight face. Blood element, R10. Efficiency, 62%. 62. It was monstrous. Most mages operated at 30, 40.
Rector Yun Qinghe at 47. Bai Zhaoyue at 38. Helian Shu was at 62. He wasn't just strong, he was efficient. Every drop of his power worked. Nothing superfluous, nothing random. He was a mage who had honed himself like a knife. Every day. For decades. Helian Shu poured some tea. He said he was watching his work with interest. He said that Class U had shown remarkable progress. He said that the resonance amplification method was worth studying. Every sentence was smooth. Every word was carefully chosen. He spoke like a man who never raises his voice because he doesn't need to. Then he asked, directly, without preamble. He asked if Wuji knew what the zero vein really was. Wuji held the cup with both hands. The tea was hot, bitter. He replied that he didn't, that he was simply an observer who helped the students. Helian Shu smiled more broadly. He said he valued modesty, and that modesty prolongs life as long as it's sincere. He stood up, walked over to the window, looked down at the arena below. He said the semi-final would be interesting, and that he would be watching, in person, from the stands. Wuji finished his tea. He stood up. He bowed. He left. In the hallway, he exhaled. His hands were ice cold. Not from fear, from clarity. His eyes had been working at their limit throughout the entire conversation. Wuji saw every micro-emotion on Helian Shu's face. He saw his vein throb as the question about the zeros was asked. He saw a shadow of interest, not a kind one, but a predatory one. Helian Shu wasn't testing him. He was evaluating him. Was the specimen ready for the collection? Or did he need to wait a little longer? Uzi walked down the stairs counting. 116 shards. Hidden P 2.2. He still needed 284 more shards to reach P4. To be safe from Helian Shu, he'd need much more. R10 versus R2. An abyss. But an abyss is just a distance. And a distance can be traversed, step by step, shard by shard. Class U had made it through 2 qualifying rounds for the grand tournament with an overall score of 7-0. Yan Hua broke through to round 5.8. Jing Yi rose to round 6.3. Helian Shu invited Wuji over for tea and asked him directly about the zero vein. Helian Shu's efficiency is 62%. Wuji has 116 shards. Hidden R2.2. The semi-final pitted Class U against Class Geng. An upset. Class Geng was the tournament's dark horse. Average R5.9. Captain Wei Yulin. R7.1. Ice element. Calm. Calculating. Not a single unnecessary move. She had made it through the previous rounds in silence. No spectacular victories, no cheers from the stands. She simply won. Methodically. Cleanly. Wuji studied her through the eye during training and froze. Efficiency, 51%. He double-checked. 51. It was the second highest rating on the island, behind only Helian Shu and the rector. Wei Yulin wasn't a natural talent. She was a machine. Every movement had been polished by 1,000 repetitions. Every knot in her spells was tied perfectly. She had honed herself the way a craftsman hones a blade. For years, without fanfare, without sponsors from the council, without family connections. The daughter of a blacksmith from a southern province. The only one in her lineage with a living. Wu Ji respected that. And that was precisely why he was preparing more seriously than for any previous battle. Wei Yulin had no weak points. Her breathing was flawless. Her stances were straight. There were no loose links in her structure. The only gap the eye could see was in her reaction speed. Not slow, normal. But Jingyi was faster. Wind against ice. Speed against density.
Wuji rearranged the order of the matches.
Jingyi would go first. Against Geng's strongest student following the captain. Our 6.4 Earth. A tough opponent for Wind. But Jingyi knew how to fight against Earth. 3 years at Jia had taught her to break any shield if she knew where to strike. Yanhua is second. Against our 5.7 Fire. A clash of elements. Thunder against fire. Yanhua was faster and fiercer. Mu Qiao is third. Against our 5.5 Wind. Earth against wind. A classic advantage. By this point, Mu Qiao's shield could withstand an R7 strike. Xiaowan was fourth. Against our 5.9 Light. A mirror match. Light versus light. Here, technique, not strength, would decide the outcome. And in 2 months, Xiaowan had become a different person. Or Wei Yulin would be last if the score reached 2-2. Wu Ji hoped it wouldn't come to that. Semi-final day. The arena is completely full. All the stands. Standing room only. The faculty gallery. Rector Yun Qinghe is in the front row. Next to him is an empty chair. A minute later, Helion Shu sat down in it. He came as promised. In person. At the other end of the stands was Bai Zhao Yue. Class Jia had already advanced to the finals. They had crushed Class Y 4-0 in the other half of the bracket. Bai Zhao Yue looked out at the arena with an expression that Wu Ji could read through the eye from a distance of 40 meters. She was waiting. She wanted to face him in the final. She wanted to crush him in public. In front of her mother, who had sent a letter from the council, in front of the academy. Uzi took his position as tactician, token 0.00. The stands had grown accustomed to it, but hadn't stopped whispering. The first match, Jingyi versus Earth's R6.4. Gong! Jingyi didn't move for 3 seconds. Wu Ji counted. His opponent raised the Earth wall, a standard defense, solid, even nodes. Wu Ji found a gap. Not in the shield, in her stance. Her opponent's left foot was half a centimeter wider than it should be. Her center of gravity was off balance. If she struck from the lower right at a 30-degree angle, her body would reflexively sway and her shield would sag for a second. He told Jingyi, from the lower right, 30 degrees. Jingyi lunged forward. The wind howled. She circled around the earth wall on the right and struck from the bottom up. The wind blade slashed at an angle and slammed into her opponent's right side. Her opponent swayed. The shield sagged. Jingyi struck a second time at the opening that had appeared. A third. Her opponent fell outside the boundary. 12 seconds. The stands roared. Wei Yulin, sitting on the Gen class bench, narrowed her eyes slightly. Her first sign of emotion in the entire tournament. The second match, Yanhua. Wu Ji told her to exhale. She exhaled. Thunder clapped. 5 seconds. Her opponent, R5.7 Fire, lay on the arena stone, smoking. Healers rushed over. She was alive. First-degree burn. Yanhua stood in the center of the arena, sparks racing through her hair as if alive. The token read R6.0. She stepped over the 6. Someone in the stands gasped. 2 months ago, she had been R4.20. The third match, Mu Qiao versus R5.5 Wind. This fight was long. 2 minutes. Mu Qiao didn't attack. She just stood there. Her earth shield absorbed blow after blow. The wind crashed against the stone and shattered. Her opponent was wasting her strength. Mu Qiao waited. At the 120th second, her opponent ran out of steam. The final strike was weak. Mu Qiao took a step forward and pushed. Earth Fist. Simple, direct. Enough. 3-0. The semi-final was over. Wei Yulin didn't enter the arena. She stood up from the bench. She walked over to the railing. She looked at Wu Ji for a long time. Without anger, without resentment, with something resembling an admission. She said that in 6 months, His students would be stronger than the entire class Jia combined. Wuji looked at her. His eye showed 51%. A perfect machine. He told her one thing. He said her left knee was slightly overloaded. If she shifted her weight to her right knee when forming the third knot, she'd save a quarter of a second. Wei Yulin froze. She blinked. She looked at her left knee, then at him. Then she turned and walked away. But Wuji saw through the eye how her nerve twitched at the moment of realization. She realized he was right, and that shook her more than the team's defeat. Shards for the semifinals, 12 from combat, plus 6 from the seal's reaction, plus 1 unusual one. When Uji gave advice to Wei Yulin, he felt a shard fall. Not from his student, from another mage. He helped her see a weakness and received a shard for it. The eye of the Nine Truths worked not only through the seal, it worked through any kind of help. Any mage whom Uji encouraged to grow contributed a drop to his vessel. The seal accelerated the process, but it wasn't mandatory. That changed everything. 135 shards. Hidden R 2.5. Token 0.00. The final match in a week. Class U versus Class Jia. He versus Bai Zhao Yue. Before going to sleep, Wuji went out onto the roof. The night was clear. The stars hung low. He gazed toward the continent. There, beyond the clouds in the order of the Scarlet Dawn, his brother was growing at an unimaginable rate. R7 2 months ago. How long had it been now? Wuji didn't know, but he knew the clock was ticking, that someday they would meet again. And this time, Wuji wouldn't be on his knees. He said quietly into the night air, "Every debt with interest, every single one." 4 days before the final, an envoy from the Chen clan arrived at the academy. Elder Chen Bo, R9, Earth Element. Uji saw him from the roof that morning. A gray-haired man in the Chen clan's ancestral armor was descending from a flying barge onto the dock. Behind him were 2 servants carrying trunks. An official visit. The clan's seal on the flag. Wuji watched through the eye. Chen Bo's efficiency rating was 44%. He was old but sturdy. A 70-year-old warrior who had spent half his life on the border. He had come on behalf of Wuji's father to check whether the family's disgrace was still alive. Wuji did not come down to meet him. They hadn't seen each other in 2 months. The last time, Chen Bo had been standing in the hall when they ripped the buckle off Wuji. He hadn't intervened then. He wouldn't intervene now either. An elder obeys the clan head. The clan head had disowned his eldest son. To Chen Bo, Wuji was a nobody. For now. Wen Jun informed Wuji that Elder Chen Bo would be attending the finals as a guest of honor. A seat in the diplomatic box next to representatives of other clans. Wuji nodded. He said nothing. But inside, something tightened. It didn't hurt. It was cold. Like a metal hoop around his ribs. His father had sent a check-in. Not a rescue, not help. A check-in. To make sure the disgrace hadn't grown into a threat. Wuji took a breath. He exhaled. Clarity returned. His eyes burned with steady intensity. He had spent 4 days preparing. Not for battle. For a spectacle. The final of the Great Seven Towers tournament was being broadcast via mirror spheres to every province. Every clan. Every order. Every city would see what happened in the arena. Uzi wasn't going to just win. He was going to shatter the illusion. The illusion that the Jia class was invincible. That Bai Zhao Yue was the best. That the House of Bai had a right to sit on the council. That Zero didn't deserve a place on the registry. Every duel was meant to be a message. Every victory, a statement. Every second of the fight, a word that the entire continent would hear. He worked with each of the 4 separately. He prepared Yanhua for her fight against Qian Liu Shui, that very R6.5 ice whom Xiaowan had defeated in a duel of honor. After her defeat, Qian Liu Shui trained like a woman possessed. R6.5 had become R6.8. She wanted a rematch, but Wuji gave that fight to Yanhua. Because Yanhua, R6 of Thunder, against R6.8 of Ice, it was a battle between equals. And in a battle between equals, The one who is fiercer wins. Yan Hua was the fiercest of them all on this island. He was preparing Zhao Wan for a fight against Bai Zhao Yue's deputy, Lin Meiqi, R7.2, element of wind, second ranked in class Jia. Strong, fast. But Zhao Wan knew a trick that wasn't in any textbook. Diagnostic resonance with suppression, a light that doesn't strike but shuts down. Jing Yi was up against the third student in class Jia, R6.4 Earth. The same type of opponent as in the semifinals. Jing Yi knew how to handle this. She knew better than anyone because she'd stood in formation alongside this girl for 3 years. She knew her habits, her fears, her blind spots. Mu Qiao, 4th, against R6.0 Fire. A standard task for Mu Qiao. Stand, endure, wait. And when her opponent gets tired, land a single strike at the right spot. And if the score is 2-2, then the final match. Bai Zhao Yue, R8. Against whom? Wu Ji didn't choose a fighter for Bai Zhao Yue. He knew that if it came down to the 5th match, the plan had already failed. But if the first 4 won, the 5th match wouldn't take place. 4-0. No chance for Bai Zhao Yue to step into the arena. Not a single moment of glory. She'd sit on the bench and watch as her team was torn apart. That was worse than losing in battle. It was humiliation through inaction. 3 days before the final, Uzi had earned 14 shards from intense training. Total score, 149. Hidden R 2.7. The void in his palms had grown denser. He could now dispel spells up to R4 within a 2-meter radius for 2 seconds. Not a weapon, but a shield. An emergency shield. For a worst-case scenario. 2 days before the final, something happened that Uji hadn't anticipated. At night, he was lying in bed when suddenly the eye flared to life on its own. Without concentration. Without effort. It simply turned on. And revealed. Beneath the floating island. Deep down. At the point where the threads from the main registry converged. Something had awakened. Not alive. Not dead. A mechanism. Ancient. Enormous. Like a clock that had been ticking for 1,000 years and suddenly began to chime. The pulse traveled through the entire island. Every student felt a tremor. Many woke up. They thought it was an earthquake. The mentors reassured them. They said the island sometimes vibrates from shifting air currents. Uzi knew that was a lie. The pulse wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from within. From beneath the registry. Something was reading the data of the 300 students and reacting to the changes. And the changes over the past few weeks had been anomalous. Class U had risen by an average of 1.5 levels. Several students had crossed thresholds that hadn't been crossed in years. The registry was reshuffled every week. The mechanism beneath the island received data about the surge and sprang into action. Uzi lay in the darkness and listened. His eyes saw a pulsation. Rhythmic, heavy, like the heartbeat of something enormous. He didn't know what it was, but he knew it was connected to the zeros, with the 8th vein, with what the 7 towers had hidden 1,000 years ago, and that he had awakened it with his growth, with his shards, with his very existence. The day before the finale, Mu Qiao brought him another discovery, not from the basement, from the library, legally, an open archive. The history section. A scroll dating back 1,000 years. The official chronicle of the sealing ritual. The text was in an ancient dialect. Mu Qiao spent 3 nights reading it. The gist was simple. 1,000 years ago, the 7 towers performed a ritual. They sealed the 8th vein, the void. They declared its bearers to be the zeros, defective. They were cut off from society. The reason was stated in the chronicle. Bearers of the void could rewrite other spells. Not destroy them, not copy them, rewrite them. Change the rules of magic on the fly. The 7 towers decided this was a threat to the world order. But Mu Qiao found a note in the margins, written in small handwriting, different ink. Someone had added it later. The note stated that the real reason was something else. The bearers of the void saw the truth. They saw that the system of the 7 elements was artificial, that it had been created. that the world of Shanghua once functioned differently, and that the Seven Towers were not the guardians of order, but its jailers. Wuji listened to Mu Qiao and felt the band around his ribs tighten again. Not out of fear. It was from understanding. He wasn't just growing, he was remembering. The Eye of the Nine Truths wasn't a gift. It was a key to a door that had been locked 1,000 years ago. And every shard turned the key a fraction of a millimeter. He thanked Mu Qiao. She nodded and left. Wuji sat at the table until dawn. 149 shards. Hidden are 2.7. Token 0.00. Tomorrow is the finale. Tomorrow, the mirror spheres will carry his name across the continent. Tomorrow, Chen Bo will see that the family's disgrace has become something else. Tomorrow, Bai Zhao Yue will pay. Tomorrow, Helian Shu will see too much, and that will be dangerous. But tonight, Wuji wasn't thinking about tomorrow. He was thinking about 1,000 years ago. About the people who had been declared nobodies. About the children who had been cast out of their clans. About the lives that had been shattered because the Seven Towers feared the truth. He clenched his fists. His fingers were warm. Warm for the first time in 2 months. The emptiness in his palms didn't demand a way out. It waited, patiently, as one waits 1,000 years. The morning of the final. Wuji woke up an hour before dawn. His eyes burned with steady intensity. His clarity was absolute. Not a single extraneous thought. Not a single emotion. Only numbers, only angles, only nodes. He got dressed. Black uniform. Token 0.00. He went out onto the roof. The island floated above a sea of clouds. Mirrored spheres were already suspended above the arena. 12 of them. Each was broadcasting the image to its own province. The entire continent of Shanghua would be watching. Every clan, every order, every market town where a sphere hangs over the square. Wuji went down to the courtyard. Students were already crowding around the registry. Excited voices. The final. Class U versus Class Jia. 2 months ago, that had sounded like a joke. Now it sounded like war. He walked past without stopping. He headed for Class U's auditorium. All 10 were there. Yanhua sat against the wall, clenching and unclenching her fists. Sparks danced between her fingers. R6.2. Overnight, it had grown another 0.2. Anger fueled the thunder. Thunder fueled her growth. Her growth fueled her anger. A vicious cycle. A dangerous one. But today, that's exactly what she needed. Xiao Wan stood by the window. Calm. Her hands relaxed. R5. 0. A solid 5. She had crossed the threshold at night, quietly, without any flashes. Just like everything else she did. Jingyi was stretching her wrists. R6.5. On par with Qian Liu Shui, who had been 2 levels higher just 2 months ago. Now they were equals. But Jingyi knew every one of Jia's techniques inside and out. Equality in numbers meant an advantage in knowledge. Mu Qiao sat in the corner with her eyes closed. R4.5. The slowest growth among the 4, but the most reliable shield. Mu Qiao didn't jump. She built. Stone by stone. Layer by layer. Her earth wasn't a weapon. It was a fortress. Wuji stood before them. He didn't give a speech. He didn't offer encouragement. He said 4 sentences. Yanhua, you go second. Exhale before every strike. Xiao Wan, you're third. Close combat. No alternatives. Jingyi, first. Show them that their own student knows them better than they know themselves. Mu Qiao, fourth. Stand by. Each nodded. The arena. Noon. The sun stood at its zenith above the floating island. The white stone was blinding. The stands were filled to capacity. The standing sections were packed. The students sat on the railings of the galleries. The instructors stood in the aisles. In the faculty gallery, Rector Yun Qinghe sat in the front row. His face was stony. Next to him was Helian Shu. He was smiling. He was always smiling. In the diplomatic box sat Elder Chen Bo. His hair was gray. His back was straight. He wore the Chen clan's ancestral armor. He looked out at the arena and waited. Beside him were the envoys of 4 other clans. They had all arrived for the final. They all wanted to see it. In the center of the arena stood the Jia class, 10 female students in crimson dresses, 4 fighters and a tactician. The Jia class's tactician, Bai Zhaoyu, R8. She stood by the railing in the Bai house's battle attire. White armor with crimson embroidery. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was calm, beautiful, cold. She looked across the arena at Wuji. Their eyes met. She smiled, not the bored smile she'd worn at the freshman tournament, a hungry one. She wanted this fight. She wanted to crush him in public, to restore order, to put the 0 in his place. Wuji didn't smile back. He just stood there. A black uniform amid the crimson and azure. Token 0. 0, 0. A dead green light. The referee stepped into the center. He announced the rules. 4 one-on-one matches. The team with 3 wins wins. Tacticians remain behind the barrier. Verbal instructions are allowed. The gong. First match. Jing Yi versus Zhang Meiling. Round 6.4. Earth element. Jing Yi's former roommate at Jia. They had known each other for 3 years. Zhang Meiling stepped into the arena with a stony expression.
She didn't look at Jing Yi. She looked right through her, as if at a traitor. Jing Yi stood opposite her. The wind ruffled the hem of her dress. Bai Zhaoyue leaned against the railing. Her lips moved. She said something to Zhang Meiling. Wu Ji read her lips. She said, "Break her arm." Gong. Zhang Meiling raised the earth wall. Massive, solid. R6.4. She put everything into it. The wall covered half the arena. Jing Yi didn't budge. Wu Ji was silent. Jing Yi didn't need words. She had stood beside this girl during training for 3 years. She knew that after the wall, Zhang Meilin always struck with the stone spear from the left edge. Always, without exception. A habit ingrained by 1,000 repetitions. The spear flew out from behind the left edge of the wall. Jing Yi stepped to the right. The spear whizzed past her. She struck the base of the wall with the wind blade, not at the center, at the exact spot where Zhang Meiling was standing behind the stone. The blade sliced through the wall from below and struck her legs. Zhang Meiling cried out. She fell to one knee. The wall crumbled. Jing Yi was already right there. A second strike to the chest plate. Zhang Meiling was flung over the line. 14 seconds. The stands erupted. Bai Zhaoyue didn't move a muscle. Only her fingers on the railing turned white. 1-0. The second match. Yan Hua versus Qian Liu Shui. R6.8. Ice element. The very same one Xiao Wan had defeated a month ago. Qian Liu Shui stepped into the arena a different person. Tougher. More vicious. She'd been training for 2 months for this rematch. R6.8 versus R6.2. The advantage lies with ice. On paper. The gong sounded. Qian Liu Shui didn't wait. Ice pillar. Full power. All 12 nodes. 3 seconds to form. Yan Hua didn't dodge. Wu Ji said one word. Exhale. Yan Hua exhaled. Her whole body relaxed for a split second. The thunder passed through her as if through an open pipe and struck the ice pillar. Lightning met ice. The ice cracked. It didn't melt. It cracked. The thunder didn't move like fire. It moved like a vibration. It destroyed the structure from within. Every node of the ice pillar trembled and burst. Shards of ice scattered across the arena. Qian Liu Shui stood with empty hands. The spell was destroyed. 3 seconds of work reduced to dust in a single second. Yan Hua struck again. Lightning to the chest. Qian Liu Shui was sent flying 5 meters.
She slammed her back against the stone railing. She slid down. The healers rushed over. She's alive. 2nd-degree burn, fully conscious. The fight lasted 6 seconds. 6. The very same record set 3 years ago by Bai Zhaoyue. Yan Hua had matched it, only in the opposite direction. The stands fell silent. Not out of delight, out of shock. R6.2 had destroyed R6.8 in 6 seconds. Yan Hua's token flashed.
R6.2 became R6.4. A shard of thunder fell upon Wuji like a searing drop. 150. 2-0. In the diplomatic box, Chen Bo leaned forward. His eyes were wide open. He wasn't looking at the arena. He was looking at the guy in black by the railing, at the dead token, at the expressionless face. He was recognizing something, remembering something. Something from the family archives he'd read as a child and forgotten. Bai Zhaoyue stood by the railing. Her face was pale. Her lips were pressed together. 2-0. One more loss, and it's all over. She turned to the remaining fighters and spoke quickly, quietly. Wu Ji read her lips. She was changing tactics. She ordered the third fighter not to attack. Defense only. Wear her down. Buy time. Force her opponent, Yu, to make a mistake.
The final round had begun. Jingyi won in 14 seconds by exploiting her former classmates' habits. Yan Hua defeated Qian Liu Shui in 6 seconds, matching Bai Zhaoyue's record. The score was 2-0. Chen Bo began reminiscing about the knots. Bai Zhaoyue switched to a defensive strategy. Wu Ji has 150 shards. The third match, Zhao Wan versus Ling Mei Qi. Round 7.2, Element of Wind. Class Jia's number 2, the Academy's fastest student. Bai Zhaoyue gave her one instruction. Don't let her get close. Keep your distance. Wind versus light at a distance spells doom for light. Light works at close range. Wind works everywhere. Gong. Lin Mei Qi leaped backward. 5 meters. 6. 7. The maximum distance of the arena. She raised her hands and began to form the spell. Wind wall. Not an attack, a barrier. A dense stream of air between her and Zhao Wan. It's impossible to pass through it at R5 level. Zhao Wan stopped. She looked at the wall of wind. Uzi saw the spell's structure through the eye. 16 nodes, powerful, clean. Lin Mei Qi's efficiency was 42%. For 7 rand, this meant that the wind wall could withstand an attack up to 6 rand. Zhao Wan was 5 rand. She wouldn't break through it.
She wouldn't go around it. She wouldn't jump over it. Bai Zhaoyue smiled. For the first time in this fight, the tactic was working. Corner Xiao Wan into a situation where her only trump card is useless, and she'll lose. Wu Ji leaned toward the railing. He didn't say a word. Instead, he raised his right hand and pointed his finger downward. Xiao Wan saw it. She understood. Down. Not over the wall. Not around it. Underneath it. She dropped to her knees and pressed both palms into the stone of the arena. Light surged from her hands into the floor. The white stone of the arena was imbued with ancient spells. Thousands of threads, thousands of knots. And among them, threads of light stretched from one end of the arena to the other. Because the Baiyue arena was built on a foundation of light, light was woven into every stone. Xiao Wan didn't attack through the wall. She sent a pulse through the arena's stone, beneath the wind wall, through the foundation. The pulse traveled 7 meters in half a second and burst forth from beneath Lin Mei Qi's feet. Diagnostic resonance, from below, through the soles of her feet. Lin Mei Qi flinched. Her brain received a complete report on the condition of her own meridians.
Every knot, every crack, all at once. The wind wall flickered. For half a second. But that was enough. Xiao Wan was already running. Not fast. She wasn't fast. But the wind wall had vanished, and 7 meters is a 4-second run. Lin Mei Qi snapped out of it and threw her hands up. Too late. Xiao Wan was 2 steps away, hand on her chest. Light. Suppression. Lin Mei Qi's vein fell silent for 5 seconds. Lin Mei Qi stood there, her eyes wide. An R7.2 mage without a vein is an R0. 5 seconds of emptiness. Xiao Wan pushed her over the line, with both hands, into her chest. Physically. Lin Mei Qi crossed the line and fell. The arena was silent for 2 seconds. Then it erupted. The scream was so loud that the mirrored spheres trembled. 3-0. The final is over. Class U won. Without a 4th match. Without a 5th. 4-0 if you count that the fourth wasn't needed. Bai Zhao Yue stood by the railing. She didn't enter the arena. She didn't land a single blow. She didn't cast a single spell. She stood through the entire final as a spectator in her own uniform. Her team had been dismantled. Her tactics had been shattered. Her record had been matched. And she had done nothing. It was worse than any defeat. It was an erasure. The stands were screaming. Yanhua stood in the center of the arena, and bolts of lightning danced around her as if alive. Jingyi was smiling. Mu Qiao stood on the bench, and for the first time in 2 months, her face wasn't stony. She was smiling. Quietly. Barely noticeably. Xiaowan returned to the railing and stood next to Wuji. She was breathing heavily. Her hands trembled from the exertion. She looked at him. He looked at her. She said nothing. But in her eyes was the same thing she'd shown 2 months ago on the roof. Recognition. As if she'd always known it would be this way. Wuji looked away first. Not now. In the faculty gallery, Dean Yun Qinghe slowly stood up. The entire hall saw her rise. A rector doesn't stand for students. A rector stands for equals. She stood there, looking at Wuji. 3 seconds. Then she sat back down. 3 seconds. The entire continent watched through the mirrored spheres as Rector Bai Yue stood for the boy with the 0.00 badge. Helian Shu sat next to her and was no longer smiling. For the first time, his face was impassive. His eyes were narrowed. He was looking at Wuji, and Wuji felt that gaze through the eye like a red-hot needle. Not interest, not judgment, a decision. Helian Shu was making a decision, right now. Wuji didn't know what it was, but he knew that the grace period was over. In the diplomatic box, Chen Bo was standing. He had stood up before the rector. His hands rested on the stone railing, and his fingers were white. He was looking at his nephew's dead token, at the 0.00 that didn't flash, that didn't change. It just stood there. And he knew. He had read the archives. He had seen 300-year-old records about the last 0 of the Chen clan, about what happened when that 0 stopped hiding. Chen Bo knew, and he was terrified. Bai Zhao Yue didn't move. She stood by the railing and looked out at the arena. Her students had lost. Her tactics hadn't worked. Her name was whispered in the stands, not as the name of the best, but as the name of the one who had been surpassed. Surpassed by the 0. With a dead token. With 10 students from her senior class. In full view of the entire continent. In full view of her mother, who was now watching through the mirrored sphere in the hall of the Council of the Seven Towers. Bai Zhao Yue turned and walked toward the exit. Her stride was steady. Her back was straight. Her face was blank. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't protest. She simply walked. And that was more terrifying than a scream. Because those who are broken scream, and those who plan remain silent. The evening after the final. The academy was buzzing. The hallways were full of voices. The name of Class U was on everyone's lips. The name of the dark mentor was mentioned even more often. Wuji wasn't celebrating. He sat in his room, staring at the ceiling. 154 shards. Hidden R 2.8. Token 0.00. His eye burned steadily. His clarity was crystal clear. And precisely because his clarity was crystal clear, he sensed it. On the edge of perception. An alien presence. Not magical, physical. A person in the hallway outside the door. Standing motionless. Breathing slowly. Vital signs deliberately suppressed. Camouflage at level P7, minimum. Wuji sat up on the bed. His eye focused. Through the wall, he saw a silhouette. A man. Short. Thin. Wearing the academy instructor's uniform. But the vein wasn't an instructor's. Fire element. R 7.3. Efficiency. 45%. Not a single Bai Yu instructor wore an R7 fire element. Wuji checked the vein registry he kept in his memory. Every mentor, every instructor, every servant the eye had scanned over the past 2 months. This man was not among them. A mercenary. Bai Yue hadn't screamed or cried. She had hired an assassin. Wuji stood up, quietly, barefoot on the stone floor. The door wasn't locked. At Bai Yue, doors weren't locked at night. A tradition of the women's academy where everyone trusted one another. Uzi slipped toward the wall. He pressed his back against the stone next to the doorframe. The eye showed the mercenary in real time. He stood 3 steps from the door. His right hand was lowered. A spell was forming in his palm. Silent, concise, fire needle. A lethal close combat spell. It penetrates the body through any gap in the defense. If it hits the heart, death is instantaneous. The mercenary took a step toward the door. Uji acted on reflex, not on thought. His eye caught the moment when the mercenary shifted his weight to his left leg to push off.
Half a second before the attack, Uzi flung the door open, not away from himself, but toward himself. The door slammed into the mercenary. He recoiled. The fire needle slipped from his fingers and shot into the ceiling. The stone hissed. The mercenary regrouped instantly, a professional. His left hand launched a second needle. Uji dove beneath it. The needle flew over his head and embedded itself in the wall. The corridor filled with smoke. The mercenary was fast. An R7.3 is a killing machine in close combat. Uji didn't have a single offensive spell. His hidden R2.8 offered nothing but void within a 2-meter radius. 2 meters. The mercenary was 3 meters away. Uji took a step forward. The mercenary wasn't expecting it. Zero is going for R7, forward, not backward. This threw off his calculations for a split second. Uji took a second step. The distance was 2 meters. He unleashed the void. All of it. Without a trace. An invisible wave swept through the corridor and engulfed the mercenary. The fire in his hands went out. His life force fell silent. For 2 seconds, the R7.3 mage became an ordinary human. The mercenary froze. His eyes widened. He didn't understand what had happened. His magic had vanished. Not blocked, not suppressed, gone, as if it had never existed. 2 seconds. Uji used them both. He struck the mercenary in the throat with the edge of his palm, physically, without magic. The blow was precise. His eye had pinpointed the spot on the neck where the nerve ran. The mercenary gasped. His knees buckled. Uji struck a second time, to the temple. The mercenary fell. The 2 seconds were up. The fire returned to the mercenary's veins, but the body lay unconscious on the floor. Uji stood over him, breathing heavily. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from emptiness. He had expelled all the emptiness at once, and now the inside was hollow, like an empty vessel. The eye flickered. Clarity floated within. Emotions welled up. Fear, anger, relief. Each emotion struck the eye like a hammer against glass. If he didn't calm down now, the eye would close for hours, and the mercenary would wake up in a few minutes. Uzi closed his eyes. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Hao Yan's face in the darkness, a gentle smile. Porridge, poison, betrayal. Not anger, cold. Uzi found the cold and clung to it. The anger was gone. The fear was gone. Only ice remained. The eye stabilized. Clarity returned. Not complete. 80%. Enough. Footsteps in the hallway. Xiao Wan was running. Yan Hua was behind her. The fire needle in the ceiling had roused the neighboring rooms. Xiao Wan saw the body on the floor. She saw Wuji, a pale face, trembling hands. She didn't ask any questions. She fell to her knees beside him and pressed her palms of light against his chest. She wasn't healing him. She was stabilizing him. Light surged into his veins and filled the void like water fills a riverbed. His eyes flashed. His clarity shot up to 95. Wuji looked at Xiao Wan. She was looking up at him. Her hands were on his chest. The light was soft and steady. She didn't look away. Yan Hua stood over the mercenary. Lightning crackled between her fingers. She asked who it was. Wuji answered. A mercenary. Fire R 7.3. Instructor's uniform. Fake.
Yanhua looked at the ceiling, at the scorched stone, at the fire needle protruding from the wall. Her face turned to stone. She said one name, Bai Zhe. Uzi nodded. 10 minutes later, the mentors arrived. Wen Jun, 2 instructors on duty. The mercenary was tied up and led away. Wen Jun surveyed the corridor. Her gaze lingered on the wall with the fire needle. Then on Wuji. She asked how he'd handled R7. Wuji replied that the mercenary had tripped over the threshold. Wen Jun looked at the perfectly flat stone floor, which had no threshold. Then she looked at Wuji. She nodded and left. The mercenary's interrogation took place that morning. He didn't name the client, a professional. But Wen Jun found a coin with a coat of arms in his pocket. Not the House of Bai, a different coat of arms. The Order of the Crimson Dawn. Wuji learned about this from Mu Qiao, who had overheard a conversation among the mentors. The Order of the Crimson Dawn, the very same order to which Hao Yang belonged. The mercenary didn't come from Bai Zhao Yue. He came on a commission from outside. Bai Zhao Yue was a cover, or a coincidence, or a pawn. Wuji sat in the room and stared at the coin that Mu Qiao had sketched from memory on a scrap of paper. The crimson dawn above the horizon, the symbol of the order, the symbol of his brother. Hao Yan knew that Wuji was growing up. Someone had been reporting to him. Someone from the academy. Maybe Hilyan Shu. Maybe someone else. And Hao Yan decided not to wait. Wuji crumpled the paper. He unclenched his fist, smoothed it out, looked at the crest again, spoke softly. Too soon. You acted too soon, brother, and I'm not done yet. The next morning, the disciplinary committee convened an emergency meeting. An assassination attempt on a student inside the academy. The first such incident in 40 years. The mercenary remained silent. A coin bearing the crest of the Order of the Crimson Dawn became the evidence. But the Order was an external organization, and the Academy had no jurisdiction. The investigation was referred to the Council of the Seven Towers. A response would come in months, if it came at all. Bai Zhao Yue's mother sat on the council. She could block any investigation. Bai Zhao Yue remained untouchable, formally at least, but not behind the scenes. After the assassination attempt, the academy split. Those who had whispered before were now speaking openly. Class U won the tournament. Their mentor was attacked by a mercenary. Who sent him? Why? Bai Zhao Yue's name came up in every conversation, not as an accusation, but as a suspicion. And suspicion erodes a reputation more slowly, but more surely than a conviction. Bai Zhao Yue walked through the academy with her back straight and a stony expression. Her students from the Jia clan their eyes. 2 defectors from Yuzhou, Mei and Tang Ruishue stopped appearing by her side. The rats could sense the ship. Uzi didn't pressure her. He didn't rush her. He waited. Rector Yun Qinghe scheduled the award ceremony for the 3rd day after the finals. A public ceremony, in the main hall. The spheres were activated again. The ceremony followed the standard format. The winning team receives the first-class title. The registry is officially updated. New rankings are locked in for the semester. But the chancellor added one item to the ceremony, an unprecedented one. She announced that observer subject number 7 had been invited to address the academy. At his request. Uji received the invitation through Wen Jun. She handed him the scroll and looked at him with an expression he couldn't read, even through the eye. Something between anxiety and hope. Uji took the scroll. He nodded. He spent 3 days preparing, not for the speech, for the moment. Fragment 154. Hidden R 2.8. 3 days of training with the students yielded another 16. 170. Hidden R 3.0. Level 3. The Adept's Threshold. Uji crossed it the night before the ceremony. Quietly. No flashes. Just a number in his mind had changed. But along with the number, something else had changed as well. The void in his palms had solidified. The radius had grown to 5 meters. The duration to 4 seconds. And something new had appeared. Uji could now not only cancel others' spells, He could read them and return them, redirect them, not copy them. The spell remained someone else's, but Uji could take it like a hand in a glove and turn it back, against the one who created it. Rewriting. Basic. Elementary. R3 against R5 spells at most. But this was exactly what the Chronicle from 1,000 years ago described. The bearers of the void rewrote the rules of others' magic, and Uji had just taken his first step into this realm. The day of the ceremony. The main hall of Bai Yue. White stone, high ceilings, carved columns. 300 female students lined up in formation, instructors along the perimeter. A gallery for guests of honor upstairs. Rector Yun Qinghe on the podium. Next to him, Helian Shu.
In the diplomatic box, Chen Bo. He hadn't left. He stayed for the ceremony. His face was ashen. He had spent 3 sleepless nights reading something in the Academy's archives, to which he had been granted access as a guest of honor. Mirrored spheres hung from the ceiling, 12 of them, the entire continent. The rector delivered her standard speech, brief, dry. She declared Class Y the winner of the Great Seven Towers tournament. She awarded them the first-class title. The registry was updated. 10 names from Class Y made it into the top 50. Yan Hua was in 12th place. Jing Yi was in 15th. Xiao Wan was in 23rd. Mu Qiao was in 38th place. 2 months ago, they had been at the very bottom. The chancellor turned to Wuji. She invited him onto the platform. 300 pairs of eyes. Mirrored spheres. The entire continent. Wuji climbed the steps. A black uniform amid the white stone. The badge on his chest read 0.00. A dead green light. He stood before the hall. The hall was silent. Not hostile, not friendly. Waiting. Uji didn't give a speech. He wasn't an orator. He was a lens. He raised his right hand. He looked at the token on his chest, then at the hall. Then he did what he hadn't done in 2 months. He let go of control.
The token flickered. 0.00 shifted. The green light flashed brighter. The numbers crept up. 0.00, 0.5, 1.0, 1.5, 2.0, 2.5, 3.0. The token stopped at 3. R3. The hall gasped. 300 voices at once. The 0 showed a 3. Impossible. Zeros don't grow. Zeros have no veins. Zeros are dead stone. Yet the token glowed steadily at 3. R3. Adept. Uji stood there in silence. Let the number speak. Let the continent see through the spheres. Let every clan, every order, every market city see that 0 reached a 3 in 2 months from absolute 0. In the gallery, Helian Shu stood up. For the first time. He stood up and his face was unlike anything Uzi had ever seen before. Not a smile. Not calculation. Hunger. The pure, unmasked hunger of a researcher who had seen something that confirmed his theory. He whispered something. The eye read his lips. He said that they were growing something that had no name in their books. Chen Bo, in the diplomatic box, stood up. His hands were shaking. He was looking at the token, at the 3rd row. And Wu Ji saw through the eye that the elder was crying. Silently.
Without a sound.
Tears streamed down his wrinkled cheeks and fell onto the family armor. He knew. He had read it in the archives. He realized that the Chen clan had not died out. The Chen clan had been waiting. 3 generations. Waiting for the door to open again. And now, it had opened. Bai Jiao Yue stood in the 3rd row among Jia's female students. She was looking at the token, at the 3, and on her face Wu Ji saw not anger, not fear, despair. She wasn't fighting a student, she was fighting something she didn't understand, something that didn't obey the rules. And for the first time, she realized that she hadn't lost tactically. She had lost categorically. She had been playing one game, and Wu Ji had been playing another. Wu Ji lowered his hand. He turned to the rector. He bowed. He stepped down from the platform.
The hall was silent. 300 people and not a single sound. Only the hum of the mirrored spheres. Only the light from the token on his chest. R3. 3. Not 8, not 10. 3. But those 3 were more terrifying than 10, because 10 is the ceiling. And a 3 in 2 months, starting from 0, that's a trajectory with no ceiling.
After the ceremony, Wuji stepped out into the courtyard. The evening light fell on the white stone. The register stood in the center. 300 names. His name was not among them. The observing subject was not included in the register. But at the bottom of the stone, a thin line was beginning to appear. A new one. One that hadn't been there that morning. Wuji stepped closer. The letters were forming slowly. Gold seeped from the black stone like blood from a scratch. Chen Wuji. Position 301. R3. The last line. Below all 300, but a line. His name. For the first time in 2 months. For the first time since that morning when his buckle was torn off and he was struck from the clan's register. The stone had accepted him. Not the academy, not the rector, not the committee. The stone. An ancient incantation woven into the register 1,000 years ago had completed his name on its own. Because the register did not respond to status, it reacted to power. And there was power. Wuji stood before the register and looked at his name. Line 301. The last one. The very bottom. He smiled. For the first time in 2 months, it wasn't a cold smile. There was something else in it. Not joy, a promise. Footsteps sounded behind him. Heavy. Steady. Chen Bo stopped 3 steps away. Wuji didn't turn around. The elder stood in silence. For a long time. Then he spoke. He said he'd been reading the archives. That he'd found records of an ancestor named Chen Lingshu. 0. 4 generations back. The very one who had marked the beginning of the clan's decline. The official version stated that Chen Lingshu was a disgrace to the clan and had been expelled. But there was another record in the archives, sealed with the clan head seal. Chen Bo broke the seal using his rank as an elder. The record stated that Chen Lingshu had not been expelled. He had been killed by the Council of the 7 Towers because his token had begun to display numbers, just like Wuji's, starting from 0, going up, without stopping. The council grew afraid and sent an enforcer. The Chen clan head of that generation knew. He accepted it. He remained silent. And from that time on, every clan head received a sealed scroll with instructions. If a 0 were born into the clan and the token began to rise, the head was obligated to inform the council. Immediately. Wuji's father knew. Wuji closed his eyes. He opened them. His eyes were ablaze. His clarity was icy. He asked one thing. He asked if his father had reported it. Chen Bo replied that he didn't know, but that Hao Yang knew about the scroll. Hao Yang had found it in the archives a year ago, and it was precisely after that that he began planning the poisoning. Not out of envy, out of fear. Hao Yang realized that if his older brother's vein were to awaken, the council would come for the entire clan. And he decided it would be easier to kill the vein before it revealed the number. Honglong's tear was not meant merely to suppress the magic during the exam. It was meant to destroy the seed forever. But it did not destroy it. Because the void is not magic. The void is the absence of magic. And absence cannot be poisoned. Chen Bo fell silent. Wuji stood before the register. Line 301. His name. Golden letters on black stone. He turned to the elder, looked him in the eyes. Chen Bo held his gaze. There was no guilt in his eyes. There was weariness. The weariness of a man who had served the clan for 70 years and had only now realized that the clan was built on lies. Wuji told him to return to the clan. He told him to find the scroll containing the council's instructions. He told him to hide it. Not to destroy it, to hide it. Because when the time came, this scroll would serve as proof. Chen Bo asked, "Proof of what?" Ji replied, "That the 7 Towers have been killing the innocent for 1,000 years."
Chen Bo was silent for a long time. Then he bowed. Not just a formal bow, a deep one. The kind of bow one gives to someone they recognize as their elder. He turned and walked toward the pier. The morning barge was waiting for him. Wuji watched him go. The old soldier walked away with his back straight, but his stride was different, heavier, like that of a man carrying more than just the chests on the barge. Wuji returned to the registry. The courtyard was emptying. Evening was falling. He stood alone before the black stone and listened. His eye heard the pulsation beneath the island, the mechanism that had awakened. It pulsed more strongly than it had a week ago. Data on the 301st name in the registry flowed downward, toward what was hidden beneath the foundation. Uzi felt the threads reacting to his presence, neither hostile nor friendly, but with recognition.
As if the mechanism had been waiting 1,000 years, and had finally waited long enough. He raised his head. The stars lit up one after another. The floating island drifted above a sea of clouds. Somewhere below lay the continent of Shenghua, the 7 towers, the 7 elements, 1,000-year-old lie, and one guy with a 3 on his badge who knew that 3 wouldn't be enough. Footsteps behind him. Light. Quick. 4 pairs of feet. Yanhua, Xiaowan, Jingyi, Mu Qiao. They stood side by side, silently, the 4 of them at the registry. Yanhua looked at line 301 and snorted. She said that by the end of the next semester, he'd be in the top 10. Xiaowan shook her head. She said that the registry was just a piece of rock, that the real score wasn't on the wall. Jingyi didn't say anything. She just stood there, and that was enough. Mu Qiao pulled a folded sheet of paper from her sleeve. She handed it to Wuji. He unfolded it. It was a copy of a page from He Lianshu's journal. Mu Qiao had made it 3 days ago, during the commotion following the mercenaries' assassination attempt. While everyone was looking one way, she was looking the other. On the page was a list. 12 names, 12 containers, 11 empty, 1 occupied. And beneath the list was a note in He Lianshu's handwriting. Subject number 7 exhibits a height incompatible with the empty heart model. Transition to phase 2 is recommended. Transition date, the 1st of next month. 12 days from now. Phase 2. Uzi didn't know what that meant, but he knew it wasn't tea or surveillance. 12 days. He folded the sheet of paper, hid it in his sleeve. He looked at the 4 girls beside him, his team, his class, his shield and his sword. He said that in 12 days, He Lianshu would make his move, that they needed to be ready, that they needed to grow faster, that every shard counted. Yanhua clenched her fists. Sparks ran along her knuckles. Xiao Wan placed her hand on his shoulder, briefly, then withdrew it. Jingyi nodded. Mu Qiao said she knew where the map of the blood faculty's basements was kept in the library. The real one. Not the one hanging on the wall. Wuji looked at her. Mu Qiao looked back at him with quiet, attentive eyes. He nodded. The 5 of them stood by the register. Night was falling over the floating island. The mirror spheres went dark. The broadcast was over. But the entire continent had already seen it. The name Chen Wuji, the token marked with a 3. The 0 that turned out not to be a 0. Somewhere in the hall of the Council of the 7 Towers, 7 chairs stood in a semicircle, and 6 of them were occupied. The 7th was empty. The Bai House seat. Bai Jihui's mother had vacated it that evening. Her face was ashen. Her lips were pressed together. The Bai House was no longer a sponsor of the academy. The Bai House was no longer a voice on the council. The 6 remaining counselors were silent, staring at the mirrored sphere in the center of the hall, where the last image was frozen. A young man in black, an R3 token. Eyes that had seen too much. One of the counselors spoke up. He asked if it wasn't time to activate the protocol that hadn't been used in 1,000 years, the sealing protocol. The others remained silent. No answer followed, but neither did a refusal. Far from the council, far from the academy, in the mountain fortress of the Order of the Crimson Dawn, In a dark, windowless hall,
Chen Haoyang stood before the mirrored sphere, gazing at his older brother's frozen face. Haoyang's token glowed with a number that a 17-year-old mage shouldn't have. R9. 2 months ago, it had been R7. Someone was feeding him power. Not the order, not his training, something else. Something from behind the door that the Seven Towers had locked, and whose key they had thrown into the abyss 1,000 years ago. But doors have two sides. Haoyang turned toward the shadow in the corner of the hall. The shadow had no face, no token, no energy signature that any mage could read. The shadow said it was time, that the subject had awakened, that the lens was working, that the tower's experiment had failed, and that what was needed now wasn't science, it was power. Haoyang asked how much time he had. The shadow replied, until his brother remembered. Haoyang smiled. The smile was gentle, warm, just like the one he'd wear over a bowl of poisoned porridge. He said he wouldn't let that happen, that he would bring his brother home, alive or not, and that the council had approved it. The shadow nodded and vanished. Haoyang was left alone before the sphere, his brother's face on the screen, eyes that had seen the cracks in the world. The R3 token, which in half a year would become R5. In a year, R8. In 2 years. Haoyang didn't want to think that far ahead. He turned off the sphere. The hall grew dark. Only his token glowed in the darkness. R9. Unnatural, impossible. Purchased at a price he didn't yet fully understand. And on the floating island above the clouds, 5 people stood by the register. Line 301 glowed gold. Uzi looked at his name and felt the millennia-old mechanism pulsing beneath his feet, as the threads of the register stretched downward toward whatever something hidden. How the void in his palms grew heavier with each passing day. He didn't know what awaited him in 12 days. He didn't know that the council was discussing the sealing protocol. He didn't know that his brother stood at the threshold with a power that shouldn't exist. But he knew one thing. His name was carved in stone. His students were by his side. His eye was open. And the debt remains unpaid. Every debt with interest. Every single one.